Mom texted, "Don't come to Christmas. It's just simpler without you and the kid." My sister replied, "Finally, peace and quiet." I responded, "No worries, just canceled the December mortgage draft." They laughed. Until the payment bounced. 3 days later they were blowing up my phone begging me to undo it, but I was at Target with a cart full of wrapping paper, toys, and gift cards when my phone buzzed. It was a text in the family group chat. "Mom, don't come for Christmas. It's just simpler without you and the kid." I stopped walking. I thought maybe it was a typo. My heart didn't race, it just kind of slowed. Before I could even respond, another message popped up. "Rebecca, finally, peace and quiet." It wasn't a mistake. I stared at it, standing between a wall of gingerbread kits and some snowman pillows, wondering if anyone else around me could hear that switch flip in my brain. For a second I felt embarrassed. Like I was the idiot again. The one trying too hard. The one who didn't get the joke. Only this time I wasn't laughing. They didn't know it yet, but that text was going to cost them everything. They thought I was still the same girl who used to beg for a seat at the table, who smiled through their little jabs and kept buying my way into their lives. They had no idea who they were talking to anymore. I walked straight out of the store, left the cart where it was, sat in my car and opened my banking app. The mortgage payment was set to draft in a few days, $2,312 like clockwork. They didn't even know I was still paying it. The house was almost paid off. They told everyone it was a miracle how they'd managed to stay afloat since Dad's job loss and Mom's health scare. A blessing. The real blessing was me, and they never once admitted it. I canceled the draft. Then I went to the group chat. Me, "No worries, just canceled the December mortgage draft." I didn't wait for their replies. I muted the chat and went home. My son was playing with Legos on the floor when I walked in, like nothing had happened. And for once I was glad he'd never remember these people. That night I deleted the half-wrapped gifts from my Amazon orders. I called my credit card company and disputed the charge for the $600 gift card I'd just bought for Rebecca. By morning the silence was gone. My phone was blowing up. "Mom, what is this about the mortgage? Mom, why would you say something like that? Rebecca, you're not seriously going to mess with their house over a joke. Rebecca, Lucia. Seriously. Grow up." Then came the call. Then another. Then 10 voicemails from my mom's number. Her voice shaking, saying they needed to talk. Saying they didn't mean it. Saying they were stressed. I didn't answer. Then came the text from my dad, the first time he'd texted me in over a year. "Dad, please don't do this. We need that payment. You know your mother can't work right now." Funny. She had plenty of energy to text me that it'd be simpler if I didn't come. So I did the simplest thing I'd ever done. I disappeared. They didn't get it at first. For the first 24 hours they thought I was bluffing. I could feel it through the texts. The way Rebecca kept tossing out casual messages like, "This is petty," or "You're ruining Christmas for no reason." As if any of this was new. As if I hadn't been ruined in that house a long time ago. The messages started shifting tone around the 48-hour mark. That's when Mom called me 6 times in a row. Then she left a voicemail where she cried and said she was just overwhelmed. Said she didn't mean what she said, and that it was taken out of context. Taken out of a message she typed, hit send on, and never deleted. It was honestly pathetic how fast the panic kicked in once they realized I wasn't bluffing. By day 3 they stopped pretending it was a joke. "Mom, Lucia, we don't have the money to make that payment. You know we don't. Rebecca, why would you let Mom and Dad suffer like this? Just because of one message? Mom, they said we have until the 27th to cover it. I'm begging you. Please don't do this. Rebecca, you're overreacting. Like always." Then it got real quiet for a few hours. I knew exactly what was happening. They were calling around, trying to get help, figuring out if they could borrow, beg, or refinance. But here's the thing, they couldn't. Mom wasn't working. She left her job months ago and never got back in. Dad hadn't worked since his heart scare. Rebecca barely kept herself afloat and hadn't paid a dime toward their house in years, even though she lived there with her kids. They were drowning. And for 3 years I'd been the lifeboat. Quietly, faithfully, without a single missed payment. As I loved them. Even when they treated me like I was disposable. Even when they talked over me at dinners, ignored my son's birthdays, forgot to ask how I was doing, I still showed up with my arms full of gifts and my heart stupidly wide open. I paid that mortgage thinking I could earn their love. But all they really loved was the money. So I took it back. Instead I called my aunt. My mom's older sister. The only person in the family who ever treated me like I mattered. She'd been sending me Christmas cards since I was 15, always with little handwritten notes that said things like "I see you and you're stronger than they realize." She answered on the first ring. I told her everything. There was a pause, then she said, "Lucia, come spend Christmas with us. We want you. Both of you." Just like that. No drama. No guilt. Just an invitation I didn't have to beg for. The next morning I woke up to a Facebook post from Rebecca. A long, dramatic rant about how some people will use money to control you, and family should be unconditional. She didn't name me, but she didn't have to. Then Mom called again. Then texted. Then emailed. She even got my dad to try messaging me from an old Facebook account. I didn't respond. Because they weren't sorry. They were just scared. By December 20th, the mortgage company had officially marked the payment as missed. I didn't need to check. I knew because I got a notification from the account portal I'd set up years ago to manage their payments. It showed an alert in red. Delinquent, action required. A day later, Rebecca texted me again. "You're seriously going to let Mom and Dad lose their home? Right before Christmas? What kind of daughter does that? What kind of daughter? The kind who paid off over $60,000 in mortgage payments while being told she wasn't wanted for Christmas. That kind." Then she added, "Do you even care what happens to the kids? They live here too." I stared at that message for a long time. Not because I felt guilty, I didn't, but because it was just so predictable. They always used the kids as shields. When Rebecca didn't want to take accountability, she dragged her twins into it. When Mom wanted sympathy, she brought up how hard she worked as a grandmother. Funny how they never once considered how it felt for my kid to grow up being ignored. To never get a birthday call, to never be invited to sleepovers with his cousins, to be told by my mother that he was a little much sometimes. I didn't respond to Rebecca. Instead, I forwarded every payment receipt, every transaction, and every wire transfer I'd ever made toward their mortgage to my aunt. She didn't ask for proof, but I sent it anyway. She wrote back one thing: "They don't deserve you." The next day, Christmas Eve, I packed our bags and drove to my aunt's place. She lived about 4 hours north in a small town that actually looked like it belonged on a snow globe. Her porch had real pine garland, and she had a handmade stocking with my son's name already hanging by the fireplace. It was like walking into someone else's life. One where I wasn't invisible. While we were baking cookies, she told me something that almost made me drop the spoon. Apparently, years ago, before I started covering their mortgage, Mom had asked her for help. Said they were behind and needed just a couple of months covered. My aunt offered to pay directly to the bank. Mom refused. Said it had to come through her. When my aunt insisted on sending the check to the mortgage lender, Mom stopped speaking to her for almost 2 years. That's when it clicked. They never wanted help, they wanted control. And I had handed it to them on a silver platter for 3 straight years. That night we lit a fire and watched Home Alone with hot cocoa and warm socks. My son was giggling on the floor with my aunt's dog, and for the first time in forever I felt like I could breathe. At midnight I checked my phone. 22 missed calls. 10 voicemails. And 1 message from my mom. "Yeah, we're going to lose the house. I hope you're proud of yourself." Proud? Well, I was done. On Christmas morning, while my son tore through gifts with a level of excitement I hadn't seen in a long time, I checked my phone one last time. There were 3 new messages. All from my dad, which was rare enough on its own. He usually left the guilt-tripping to Mom and Rebecca. But this time he was desperate enough to get involved. "Yeah, the bank sent a letter. Says we're going into default. We just need this one payment. Just one. Then we'll figure it out. We'll pay you back." I didn't respond. Not because I was trying to punish him, but because it didn't matter anymore. He let this happen too. He sat by for years while they treated me like a stranger who happened to share their last name. He never defended me. Never stopped them. My aunt made waffles and let my son cover his in red and green sprinkles. She handed me a card with a small gold envelope inside. I opened it and found a key. She said it was for the guest house out back. That it was mine anytime. That I'd never have to ask for permission to show up, and I'd never be treated like an outsider. I cried in front of her, which I rarely do. And she didn't say, "Don't cry." She just refilled my coffee and sat with me. Meanwhile, Rebecca was still posting cryptic Facebook updates, screenshots of eviction laws, quotes about ungrateful people, and some vague sob story about how her parents were being financially abused. That was rich. Abused? I rescued them for 3 years. And when I needed something as simple as basic respect, they told me Christmas would be simpler without me and my kid. That was their choice. Now they were going to live with it. Later that night, my cousin, my aunt's son, pulled me aside and showed me something. Apparently, my mom had called him earlier in the day, asking if he could cover the mortgage. Said it was an emergency, and that they were being targeted. He told her no. Said maybe if you hadn't cut off your own daughter for years, you wouldn't be in this mess. I didn't even know he had it in him. That was when I realized something important. They weren't just losing me, they were starting to lose everyone. My mom, the self-proclaimed martyr of the family, was watching her story fall apart. People were asking questions now. My aunt had started telling the truth. My cousin knew the full story. And without me bankrolling their problems, there wasn't much left holding up their house of lies. And their literal house? That was on the line too. December 27th. That was the final date on the notice. If the mortgage wasn't paid by then, it would be marked officially delinquent and kick off the foreclosure timeline. I knew the terms better than they did. I had been the one keeping it alive. That morning, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was a long paragraph. All caps. No punctuation. Definitely my mother. Lucy, you'll regret this, I swear to God. After everything we did for you, you're throwing use on the street. You've poisoned this family. You're sick, selfish, ungrateful. Then, if you think your aunt is your family now, you better stay there. Don't come crawling back when she gets tired of you too. So much for all the crying, and we didn't mean it. I stared at that message for a long time. Not because it hurt. It didn't, not anymore. But because I remembered a time I would have done anything to avoid making her angry. I used to walk on eggshells so carefully that I forgot how to stand. But now, I let it sit. Then blocked the number. I didn't owe her comfort. Not after she tried to weaponize the idea of homelessness to manipulate me. The same woman who told me not to come to Christmas so it'd be simpler. The truth was, I had never been her daughter in any way that mattered. I had been her safety net. Her fallback plan. Her emergency fund with feelings. Later that evening, I got a DM on Instagram. From Rebecca. It was a photo. A pile of my childhood things dumped in the driveway. Old school trophies, drawings, the stuffed bear my grandmother gave me before she passed. The caption just said, "Come get your trash before the rain does." That was their final play. Spite. I didn't respond. I didn't drive over. I didn't even flinch. Because by that point I understood something important. They had nothing left to take from me. They tried shame. They tried guilt. They tried my past. But I'd already walked away. And the thing about walking away is once you really do it, you stop looking over your shoulder. That night, my aunt and I toasted with a glass of wine, and I told her everything, not just the mortgage but all of it. The birthdays missed. The silence after my son was born. The way they used to joke about me being dramatic, too emotional, too much. She listened without interrupting once. Then she said quietly, "They didn't break you, Lucia. They just taught you who not to be." The next morning, I woke up to find a final voicemail from my dad. "If the bank takes the house, we have nowhere to go. We're your parents. We made mistakes, but families work through things. Please don't do this." But he didn't ask how I was. He didn't say he was sorry. It still wasn't about me. It never had been. No new messages. No calls. No more threats, no more begging, no more guilt-wrapped manipulation. Just silence, and for once it felt like a gift. The house went into pre-foreclosure by mid-January. I didn't celebrate, but I didn't stop it either. I got an automatic notification from the mortgage company's portal. The same one I used to log into every month like clockwork. Delinquency notice has escalated. Immediate action required. I closed the tab without even blinking. They weren't homeless. Not yet. But now they had to deal with the reality they'd ignored for years. I wasn't their financial plan anymore. I wasn't the backup generator. Rebecca tried one last move a week later. She posted a GoFundMe. Some long, dramatic sob story about how her parents were being forced out of their home due to unforeseen hardships, and how she was struggling to keep things afloat while being a single mother and caretaker. She mentioned nothing about the 3 years I kept them above water. Nothing about the way they cut me off like trash on Christmas. Nothing about the thousands of dollars they never once said thank you for. But she did include a photo of my son. From a barbecue 2 summers ago when he'd been eating watermelon on their porch. She'd taken it without me noticing. Posted it without my permission. That was the last straw. I reported the campaign. DMCA takedown for the photo. Then sent her a legal notice through a lawyer friend of my aunt's. Nothing aggressive, just a simple cease and desist. The GoFundMe vanished a day later. That was the last time I heard from any of them. It's been almost a year now. I've never gone back. Haven't checked on the house, haven't asked around. I don't need to. Whatever happened, it's not my problem anymore. I spent that Christmas in my aunt's guest house, helping her hang real garland and decorate cookies with my son. We took a trip in the spring, just the 3 of us, and it was the first time I didn't feel the weight of obligation dragging behind me. And you know what? My son still remembers that snow globe town. He still talks about the dog, the cookies, the cocoa. He doesn't ask about my mom or Rebecca or that house. And I've stopped hoping he will. Because the truth is, I didn't ruin that family. They did. I just finally walked away before they ruined me too. I don't regret a single thing. Not the silence. Not the missed payment. Not even the broken ties. Some people only love what you give them. Once you stop giving, you see what's left. And in their case, absolutely nothing.